Hi, Shane here. You're watching Sam for God, and this is Mark. Check her out.
Hi guys, how are you doing? So a couple of weeks ago I went to see a play that I knew very little about, and the only reason I actually went to go and see it was this guy over here, Rupert Grint. You may recognise him from Harry Potter. He's a pretty famous face, I suppose, for anybody my age. I grew up watching him in the Harry Potter films. I'm a big Harry Potter fan. I've read all the books as well. And when I heard that he was going to be in this play, I was like, I really want to go and see him in it, because I think it may be his first ever stage performance. He's done a couple of films before, but he's never really done a theatrical production, so I was excited to see him in something very different to like Harry Potter and another film that he was in called Driving Lessons. Anyway, the show itself, the play, it's not a musical, it's called Mojo. This is the logo for it. And yeah, like I said, I had no idea whatsoever about what the show was going to be about. You may have heard of it though, because it's not a new play. This play actually first was staged back in the early 90s, I think. And then there was a film of it as well, and I haven't seen the film either. So I literally knew nothing about it, which meant that I went into the show genuinely not knowing what to expect. And because it was a Friday night, and London tends to be very busy on Friday nights, and I've got very poor time management skills, me and my friends ended up being a bit late as well to the theatre. We got there literally like a minute before it started, but obviously because we were late we weren't allowed to actually go inside until maybe about 10 minutes or 15 minutes in, which meant that we missed the first 10-15 minutes of the show. That made it a bit more confusing for us to kind of understand the plot, but I think the plot in general is a bit confusing, especially for someone like me who doesn't really know much about that time and that scene. But I'm going to explain what I got from the show anyway. So first of all, I have to say that this is a black comedy, it's how they describe it. I definitely realised that it was a comedy because it was absolutely hilarious. I don't know why it goes under the title of a black comedy, but anyway, it's a black comedy set in Soho, which is an area in London, and it's basically a fast-paced gangster plot that tells a story of this particular nightclub's culture. So the whole thing is about this kind of nightclub and the people in it and how they live and the problems that are facing them at that time. I think Mojo might actually be the name of the nightclub. Maybe. I'm not quite sure. There's lots of different things going on inside the club, like different problems and stuff, but the main thing, I suppose, is about this guy called Silver Johnny, and he's this young, talented act who wants to perform at this club, but he's held back by his manager, who's the owner of the nightclub, and he's also the father of one of the main characters in the show, called Baby. Yes, Baby is the name of one of the characters, and he's a full-grown adult man. Anyway, I really can't explain the whole plot because it's quite difficult, but they hear about somebody dying, apparently being killed, and then they've got problems with the club, like people wanting to come inside the club but obviously they can't let them in. Apparently somebody's been hanged, you know, just different things like that that are very difficult to explain. To be honest, I didn't even understand all of them myself, but if you just Google it, you might be able to make sense of it. But even though the plot is a bit confusing, at least it was for me, it doesn't distract from the amazingness of the play as a whole. The play itself is absolutely brilliant. It's probably one of the funniest plays I've ever seen. It's written by Jez Butterworth, who obviously wrote it first, when it first, you know, became popular back in the early 90s. And it's great, the dialogue is incredible, there's loads of swearing, so I suppose it's not recommended for younger people, and there's some adult themes going on in there as well that they talk about, so yeah, I would say it's about for people maybe above the age of 14? 16? I don't know really. It depends on you. But just know that there are a lot of swearing and stuff going on in the play. But it's also hilarious. Like, I was laughing every maybe 5 minutes. It's so funny. Right, let's get to the cast, shall we? Brendan Coyle is in this show. You might know him from a TV programme called Downton Abbey. Now, I don't watch the show, but a lot of my friends do. Actually, one of my friends who I went to see this with, she's a big fan of him, so she was very excited. I actually got him to sign my programme as well, as you can see here. Anyway, back to the character names. His character name is Mickey, and he's, I suppose, one of the main people of the club. I don't think he's the owner, but he's definitely like the boss of everybody else working at that club. He's the powerful man that everybody looks up to. He was brilliant, he really was. Like I said, I haven't watched him in Downton Abbey, but I can't imagine him being like this in Downton Abbey. He was swearing constantly, he was being hilarious, he was talking about explicit issues. It was great. It really was brilliant. Then we've got Rupert Grint's character. He plays a guy called Sweets, and there's another guy called Potts, and he was played by Daniel Mays. These two are sort of like a double act. They're always together. Most of the lines are delivered together, which makes them a very funny duo. And they were both absolutely brilliant. Rupert Grint, I really can't say enough great things about him. I've always liked him in the Harry Potter films, but obviously there's not much for him to do in the Harry Potter films, and his character, I think Ron Weasley, especially in the films, isn't that much of a complex character. But here, Rupert Grint as Sweets was so funny. He was in character the whole time, and it's a very demanding play, I think. All the characters, all the actors were on stage pretty much for the whole show. He was so funny, I can't explain it to you. His facial expressions, I mean, he's playing this like nervous, scared man. Obviously all of them are very nervous and worried about the situation of the club. And he played it so well. Some of his lines were delivered fantastically. The audience absolutely loved him, and yeah, I was very impressed by his performance. Daniel Mays as well. Oh my god, he is a legend. I don't think I've ever seen him in anything before, but wow, his comic timing was excellent. I loved him, he was so funny. He's probably the one who made me laugh the most out of everybody in this show. Then we've got this other guy called Skinny, that's his character name. He was played by Colin Morgan. He was really good as well. His character's a bit more subdued, a bit more calm, a bit more normal, maybe, but yeah, he was great. Perhaps one of the biggest characters of the show is the character of Baby, like I said. And Baby was played by a guy called Ben Whishaw. He was brilliant. Like, wow, he played him so well. And he's a very weird, interesting, fascinating, strange, perhaps even a bit scary character. And he played him in a very spot-on way. I thought he was phenomenal, really. I mean, he was just in character the whole time, and obviously that's what an actor should do. I never believed that he was this normal guy like Ben. He was always Baby, and just the way he delivered his lines, his eyes, his facial expressions, his voice, everything about him was perfect for the role, even though it's a very strange role. I thought he did an incredible job, so yeah, cast-wise, everybody was great. There's also another person in the cast who plays Silver Johnny, but his part is so minor that I don't really know what to say about him. Basically, all he has to do in the play is to be hanged, and then maybe he has like a couple of lines, and that's about it. He was really good though, and he was played by a guy called Tom Rhys-Harris. He's an understudy for one of the other roles, so I'm sure he gets to go on as well at some point, and I'm sure he'll be good if he gets to go on. The sets were great. I mean, the first act is pretty much completely set in the club. There's nothing else going on. There's no changes or anything, but it's fine because it gives you the feeling of being involved with them in this club and the dramas and the problems that they're having at the time. I thought it was great. The second act is set in the basement because they actually go in the basement of the club. That's where the guy is hung. But yeah, again, it was really good. It was pretty dark, bit eerie, I think. Very basic, but you know, it did the job for this play. I really enjoyed the play, even though I found it kind of confusing and it was very different to what I expected it. It was hilarious. I mean, it was really funny. The actors, all of them were absolutely brilliant. The direction was great. The director is actually called Ian Rickson. He did a great job. And the play itself, I think, is great. The material is great because all the lines, the plot, everything, even though, like I said, it can be a bit confusing, it was great. It was thrilling, it was exciting, it was scary at times, it was engaging, it was very fast-paced, so you never got bored. And the actors literally worked their socks off. They were brilliant, all 5 of them, I think there's 5. And yeah, I definitely recommend it. This is only on until the end of January, I think. If you get a chance, do go. I managed to get £10 day seats, because they do them, front row day seats. That's amazing. So I didn't have to pay much, and I mean, I would go and see it again if I get the chance, but I don't think I've got the time now. But you should go and see it. Like I said, it's called Mojo, the play. It stars Rupert, Grint and Brendan Coyle and 3 other amazing actors. So if you get a chance, if you're in London, go and see it. It's at the Harold Pinter Theatre as well, I forgot to mention that. And yeah, that was my review of Mojo. As always guys, if you've seen the show, feel free to leave comments and let me know what you thought of the show. And yeah. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!